I say those three greetings because people in Europe are watching us at night, people from Asia that are in a different time zone. Really, it's not an exaggeration. We have many views from the old continent of Europe, from Australia, from Africa, where our beloved missionaries are Elizabeth and Fernando. We send a very special greeting to them. All those that are watching us from a different part of the world, they all unite now, and that's why you can feel this glorious atmosphere. Unite so that God can speak to us. Here we've sung, we've worshipped, we've praised, we've had such a great time. God spoke to us and said that He doesn't want formality, but intimacy, and now we're ready for Him to speak to us again. Are we ready, people? Yes or no? To calibrate according to the heart of God. As I say every weekend, those that have their cell phones, please be sure to turn it off or put it on airplane mode. The course of the message, because that nobody came here to lose money. I don't think anybody invested money to come from far away to get distracted here. So everything can wait. All calls can wait. Your mother-in-law died? It can wait until... No, really. Because some of you might be saying, well, I want to celebrate now. No, you can wait until the service is over. And if somebody has little ones, remember we have our nursery. So mothers can breastfeed their children or take them there, change their diapers, clean them. And we also have the family theater, where the more fussy children can go and play there while the parents watch this service on the screen. With that being said, and if we're ready, I'm going to transmit what I believe God told me to tell you. Many, many years ago, some might remember that when we were younger, when I was young, all adults smoked. All adults smoked. Smoking was very attractive. It was very cool. During almost the entire 20th century, smoking wasn't just a normal, reoccurring, expected, accepted daily habit, but it was an activity that could assign dignity to any person. So it gave you class and style to smoke. The tobacco companies would use persuasive public campaigns associating smoking with freedom, with being a gentleman in the case of men, with seduction in the case of women, with rebellion in the case of the younger crowd, and they promoted it as an aesthetic act. It was like a choreography to have a cigarette in your fingers. If the tobacco wasn't the pleasure, then the pleasure was having it in your fingers. Not only was it well seen, but it was also dignified, elegant, refined. It was interesting, it was attractive, and even snobbish. And so sometimes even to be snobbish, because others would do it, many would begin to smoke, even from adolescence. And public advertising for cigarettes populated cinema, commercials, television, the streets, always with a very cool idea about tobacco. If you wanted to be great, you had to smoke. If you wanted to be an adult, you had to smoke. If you wanted to be sexy, you had to smoke. If somebody wanted to appear interesting, as children, we would put pencils in our mouth and we would simulate that we were smoking because that was cool. Even if we were interpreting a character or acting or playing, all the famous people smoked. They would smoke on TV. You would smoke in the theaters. You would smoke at concerts. They would even smoke while they sang. Tony Bennett, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, David Bowie, John Lennon, Diana Ross, Freddie Mercury, Elvis Presley, Elton John, amongst many other singers. They would all sing with a cigarette in their hands. I don't know how they could do it. They would say, ah! And then continue singing. Incredible. They would smoke in recording studios, even if they were completely enclosed. They would smoke in classrooms. Teachers would smoke. My teachers would smoke. Our teachers were chimneys. You would say, hey, look, there goes my teacher, because there was a column of smoke above him. People would smoke in airports, even on planes. And obviously, people would smoke in bars and luxurious restaurants and hotels and theaters. If you randomly choose a film from the 70s, we're going to see that all the actors and actresses smoked. Doctors would treat you in their offices while they smoked. They would say, you have to take care of your health, huh? And you might say, no way. No, really. In fact, they had all sorts of ashtrays in waiting rooms. People made sure that they smoked because People didn't know the harmful effects. There was no campaign against tobacco companies. Nowadays, this sounds crazy because you see poor guys smoking with guilt on the streets, almost semi-hiding the cigarette in special places, always in open places, out in the open air. It's as if they're told that if they have that vice, they have to go outside. And so sometimes we see smokers crouching out in the cold or under the hot sun, smoking yet hiding in front of all the non-smokers or the ex-smokers that hate them, that resent them, they marginalize them, they don't want them. And we see it as an addiction from the past, right? An anachronic, unusual habit. We ask, who likes to stink like tobacco? And new generations now battle with other things that maybe kill, maybe Coca-Cola, maybe amphetamines, or in a more serious tone, fentanyl. But when I was born, every mother had a Virginia Slim in between her fingers. Good thing there's not many amens, because that would speak to the fact that you know a whole lot about it. Virginia Slims were thin cigarettes for women. Killed all the same, but they were more elegant. While fathers would converse with a Marlboro, a Camel, a Chesterfield, an L&M, a Camel, according to each person's budget. There was always a cigarette hanging from the corner of their mouths. My own mother and father smoked at least 2 packs a day before we met Christ. Until 2000, it was very common. Until 2000, it was very common that if you were traveling in the last seats of an airplane, you would get off that plane like smoked ham, because the entire rear of the plane was a smoking area. First, they removed smoking from domestic flights. It had to be at least a 2-hour flight for you to be able to smoke. But then they took out smoking altogether. The walls of my childhood home had a yellowish hue when I was younger. A gray veil. A haze of tobacco always permeated the air. My father would smoke before having breakfast even. He would get up in the morning, turn off the alarm, and he would light a cigarette. And that putrid smell of smoke was impregnated in our clothing, in our skin, in our lungs, in our throat. No parent was trying to poison their family on purpose. However, they put everyone in their family nucleus in danger, and all parents warned us, look both ways before you cross the street. Please put on a jacket because it's cold out and you might get a cold. Wash your hands before you eat because you have all the bacteria from the outside world on your hands. We couldn't sit at the table with dirty hands, but all the while they were poisoning us with that nicotine. So I'm using this example to say that many of us live in the same type of trap, but when it comes to our spiritual health. Like I said 7 days ago, we'd like to advance spiritually, but we feel that on certain occasions we're going against the grain, we're going against the wind. The question that I continue asking myself is, why so many Christians with good intention, why do we take one spiritual step forward, but then we take 2 backwards? Why can't we continue on advancing? I think our spiritual enemy blinds us with a stinky smoke screen with venomous distractions. And just like years ago, we live unaware of the smoke that's all around us, because I know that many are remembering now that, yeah, it's true, smoke was everywhere in offices, in airports, on airplanes. Back in those days, since we weren't aware of that contamination, I think that sometimes we're not fully aware of what slows down our spiritual growth. And without realizing it, we're also consuming toxic content. We live with addictive habits, and we don't see the long-term effects, which are fundamentally exterminating and killing us spiritually, but we don't realize it. We've all once heard the story. Well, it's not a story, it's reality, but if we put a live frog in a pot with cold water, and then we begin to slowly heat up the water, the frog will adjust to this temperature. First, it'll think that it's in a spa, and it won't realize that it's dying by being boiled. The increase of the temperature is so gradual that what it might feel as a warm bath, it then becomes its death sentence. So the frog's body adjusts to its environment without noticing that what is surrounding it is taking its life. And in our culture, the temperature is also changing. It's increasing daily. Fortunately, smoking isn't seen as cool anymore. But there are other things that increased in temperature so gradually that we don't realize it. And without perceiving it, we're numb to it, and that's the worst thing that can happen to us, to feel numb to a toxic environment full of venomous influence that is burning our soul slowly, and we're not realizing that it's even happening. We're literally living a fundamental change in our values. I once heard a story of a thief that goes into a mall at night, and so he changes the prices, just as a practical joke. He changes the prices, and to a big flat screen TV, he puts the price tag of socks on it, and then he puts the price tag of the TV on the socks. And the next morning, the shoppers go in and realize that what used to be very expensive now costs as much as socks. But now socks cost as much as a smart TV. That's a change of values. Isaiah 15:20 spoke about this. 5:20 said, "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter." So Isaiah was speaking about a slow change of values without us even realizing. And we say, this is sweet, but it's really bitter. Here we have light, but really it's all darkness. Just to give you an example, we all know that Netflix is one of the most consumed digital platforms across the world. In this very moment, I don't know until when, but as of now, it's number one out of all the platforms. And it's also public knowledge that the majority of its content, always, all the content on Netflix, you're going to find a gay character or a lesbian character without there necessarily being a justification for it in the plot line. Sometimes there's no need for them in the plot line, but they appear arbitrarily. They have nothing to do with it. Maybe it's an action movie, maybe it's a comedy, but they show up. The great preacher of the LGBTQ plus gospel is Netflix. Some confirm that this is due to the fact that there's a powerful lobby that works within cinema and TV. It works within the world of news and media, whose central mission is demanding that 30% of fictitious characters must represent minorities. It's as if, for example, the Academy of the Arts and Cinematography, which gives Oscars, it's as if there were a group that demands rights for immigrants, and that in every American film there has to be a representation of Mexicans, Salvadorians, and Guatemalans. It won't happen. As of right now, it's not happening, but imagine if in a certain movie there has to be a certain amount of Mexicans, Salvadorians, and Guatemalans because they're the minority in the country. LGBTQ plus are signs that mean lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex, queer, and the plus sign includes other collectives that aren't represented in the previous and maybe discovered tomorrow. The plus is just in case more come along. So they use a tactic to normalize this conduct. And the great holdings and media conglomerates have the obligation of including minorities in these fictitious characters. This is public knowledge. Why? So that this normalization can give us a sensation that there's many more of them than we thought, and as such, we will believe that they're not a minority. The minorities appear so much and so often that we'll begin to say, it's not a minority, it's the majority. Disney, the company Disney, is remastering their old classics with gays, transsexuals, transgenders. For the first time in Disney's history, they will be holding a march for gay pride. They're going to close the park for 2 nights in which they will be promoting gay pride. You'll be able to see it online. I'm not telling you to go, I'm saying it so you're aware. 2 entire nights of gay pride. This will be for the first time in Disney's history, in June of this year. Marvel, which is also owned by Disney, has announced many transgender, non-binary heroes. Obviously, they affirm that this indoctrination doesn't seek to appeal to our libidinous instinct. No, they're convinced that they're educating with plurality, with diversity. And so the strategy behind these media companies is very clear. First, it's to desensitize and normalize. Number two, Satanize those that think differently. I'm not trying to judge anyone's values. What I'm saying here is, what is the strategy? The gurus of entertainment affirm that any behavior begins to look normal if it's saturated to the public with the same and the same. It's the famous effect of the callousness of the mind. At first we see a violent scene and we say, oh, but then later we're killing zombies. And we shoot them in the head in video games. First it might seem gory, but then you get used to it. Human beings get used to everything through repetition. And as we were speaking about it a week ago, through the groove, through that mental engram, and then by logical and inherent effect, it is satanized, it is demonized. All those that oppose this new normal, whatever it is. That's why in these fictions and any digital platform, if you see a deranged person or a rapist, an abuser, a psychopath, a serial killer, they make sure that it's a heterosexual character, and generally with a functional family. If there's a deranged person, a degenerate that kills, then they're always heterosexual. These roles cannot be assigned to the sexual minorities because they feel that they would be stigmatized. So these are things that we may not realize, but every time there's a degenerate, they're always heterosexual. If they have a formal family, it's because they're going to go out and kill whoever they encounter. But if they're a minority, no, they won't, because they can't be stigmatized. However, if in that same fiction, a pastor or a religious minister appears, you're always going to see that they're intransigent, hateful, fanatic with a Hitler mustache, hostile, abusive, intolerant. So, yes, they're a minority. Yeah, Christians are relatively a minority based on percentage. But anytime that there's a pastor in a film, they're going to be stigmatized. Like a famous reporter of the Washington Post said, for the first time in history, the strange, the stupid, the ignorant, and the gross has become our cultural norm. So we urgently need ignorance to once again become a motive of shame and not pride. Ignorance is used proudly now. People say, I don't know anything, I don't read books, I just read titles online. No, I'll say it again. Let me insist. Ignorance needs to become a motive for shame and not pride. There's a story that says that a mule, a donkey, and a tiger met in the forest and had a conversation. The donkey said, "Hey, my friend, the tiger, the grass is blue, not green." And the tiger said, "No, don't be a donkey. The grass is green." And they spent a while arguing about this. The donkey would say the grass is blue, and the tiger would say the grass is green, until finally they went to the king of the jungle, the lion, to decide what color the grass was. Once they made it to the lion's presence, the donkey shouted, "Your Highness, isn't it true that the grass is blue? The grass is blue." And the lion responded, "Yes, Mr. Donkey, you're right. The grass is blue. And the tiger will be severely punished for arguing against you." And the donkey left said, "Oh, yes, I love it. He was celebrating his victory. And so the tiger asked the lion, "Your Majesty, why are you punishing me? Isn't it clear that the grass is green?" And the lion answered him, "I know the grass is green, obviously. Your punishment doesn't have to do with the color of the grass. But because I cannot tolerate that such an intelligent and powerful animal like you wastes time arguing with the donkey. But that's not the worst part. The punishment is because you're wasting my time." That's not the worst part, the lion says. The problem is you're wasting my time. So the moral behind the story is that there is no greater waste of time than arguing with someone that doesn't care about the truth. But there's a greater danger in this moral. If we always allow donkeys to be right, what's going to happen to the truth? What's going to happen when there's more donkeys than tigers? When donkeys take over and us tigers become the minority. Defending what is reasonable will be a waste of time. We'll say, nah, what for? It's all gone. Let's just wait for the apocalypse and that's it. And what about leaders? Are they all going to be like the lion that just to avoid arguing with donkeys, they're always going to give them the reason because there's so many of them? That's the matter. And here's the crux of the matter. We're desensitized to all this foolish behavior. So that constant exposure and contact to what is profane produces callousness in the human heart. That's what's worrying, the relativity, that relativism. To say, well, it's more of the same, I'm used to it. That callousness in the human heart is what's worrisome. Film, media, culture, they're not bad in and of themselves intrinsically. In fact, I work in media. I work in that environment. But not having the discernment of what's toxic can kill us like all those passive smokers. There's content that edifies or builds up our faith. It's not a whole lot of this type of content, but they exist out there. Then there's other content that is more neutral, innocuous, anodyne, that don't hurt us or build us up. It's just entertainment or sometimes a waste of time, while others, which is what's most abundant, which sow venom in our soul on purpose, arbitrarily. But we rarely recognize the negative impact of that cultural diet that we consume daily. We don't realize it. And just like someone who's on a diet and finds a bag of potato chips and they start with one or two and they say, well, it's a cheat meal. Then they realize that the bag is empty in their hands and that cheat meal is what broke their diet. Nobody wakes up in the morning. No one. I doubt anyone here wakes up and says, today I'm going to waste my day by playing video games. I'm going to play video games that are graphically violent. Today I'm going to kill people all day because that's what I woke up feeling like doing. I don't think so. Or I'm going to watch pornographic films all day. Or I'm going to listen to music filled with insults and blasphemy. Those of you that have known me for years know that I'm not a part of the Amish that only watches Sesame Street. And now I'm going to take all of you to live on an island and I'll kill you. No. You might ask, what's going on? And no, I live in the same world as you. I work in media. But shouldn't there be a barrier between good and bad, good and evil? I mean, shouldn't there be a way to be able to discern what honors God and what distances us from Him? In fact, what even might dishonor Him? Can it be that we've become insensible to what's good, evil, correct, or incorrect, pleasant or unpleasant for our holy God? And this isn't doctrine, this isn't legalism. Can it be that we've become desensitized to such an extent that we don't even see the smoke anymore? It's possible that what we consider to be normal entertainment can be dangerous for our souls. But I truly ask, without irony, can it be that what we consider to be innocuous, entertaining, or simply fun, can that end up being heartbreaking to God? And maybe that's what doesn't allow us to advance spiritually, because we're taking in trash, junk. The majority of us consume movies and series on platforms and we say, well, they all have a bit of violence. What series doesn't have bad words? If it's Mexican, then it has an insane amount of bad words. If it's Argentinian, even worse. What series doesn't have a scene with explicit sex? We say, well, I'm used to it, or when I get to that part, I just fast forward. Others put it on slow-mo. Others fast forward. And that is our problem. We can watch content with sometimes one bad word per minute. Comedies usually have one bad word per minute. But we don't notice it anymore. Again, I'm not judging values by trying to say, I have pure ears. No. But I'm just asking, how do we not notice it? Words that we don't allow our children to say, suddenly like a sewer, like a landfill, they inhabit our mind, so we can tolerate a gust of bad words and insults and not be harmed. That's the question. It doesn't cause us anything in us. We can turn off the TV and open up the Bible as if nothing happened. We just changed our hat and that's it. Let's think about this metaphor. What would happen if in my messages every Sunday, if in every sermon I included 90 bad words, Mexican and Argentinians, and some Salvadorian bad words, so no one feels left out? I'll say 90 bad words to empathize so that people can say, oh, what a cool pastor. And then I'm going to begin to speak with insults, with curse words. I'm pretty sure every one of you would be offended. You would say, there's no way this guy can say so many bad words. All right, so then what if I lessen it to 50 bad words per sermon? Or 20. How about 20? 20 bad words per sermon. 20 in an hour is fine. That's a bad word every 3 minutes, more or less. What's the amount of bad words allowed in a sermon? Everyone's answer is none. Why? Because we came here to worship God, not to listen to bad words. Yes or no? Right? If I were sitting there, I would also applaud, but here's where things get ugly. If the same people that cannot tolerate a bad word here, why do they listen to hundreds of them in any film, any movie? And it doesn't affect them. They don't tear off their garments. And you might say, well, the context makes the difference. We come to church to have an encounter with God. However, we watch Netflix, Prime, Disney, HBO to distract ourselves, to relax for a little bit, and not to feed ourselves spiritually. All right. But there's a problem with this reasoning. Just because we're in an environment, a different setting, with a different purpose, that doesn't mean that we have different lives. We're not machines with softwares that can separate the distinct apps for different uses. On our cell phones, we have different apps, one for delivery, one for Uber, another for AI, whatever it is. The human brain is not like this. We cannot separate. We cannot say, oh, right now I'm on the worldly mode, lustful mode, religious mode. No, you can't. It's naive to think that what we see on the screen, the music that we listen to, the games that we play where we kill people all day, what we read before we go to bed, we cannot pretend that it won't affect us. No matter how much of an adult we feel like. But man, does it happen. Every image, every message that we take in can be a germ that's going to make us sick. And it'll be an impediment for God to bless us. So we have to clean out our mind. No exceptions. We have to clean it out. We cannot sweep the trash under the sofa. And let's not even mention what our children consume. Before with TV, when I say before, I mean many years ago, us parents had control. We had the certainty that if we could turn off the TV, then they wouldn't consume anything else. We would make sure that they didn't watch anything inappropriate. In my country, we had something where after this hour, children should not watch. If children continue to watch, it should be under the supervision of parents. After 10, we had to go to sleep. But Batman's on. Nope, go to sleep. There were rigorous filters and regulations in respects to what a channel could broadcast. Now, at the age of 7, any child begins to pressure us that they want their own cell phone, their own device, and there is no regulation in the content. We can say, oh yeah, I put a filter. Your grandmother, tu abuela, to that filter. Culture pressures us to give them a cell phone or an iPad. Otherwise, they can't do their schoolwork, their homework. Their teachers tell them, bring an iPad. And there they watch news and real news and fake news. They can watch movies. Our children listen to music. They're more informed than what our grandparents were in all of their 80 years. They go online, they watch tutorials, they make transfers, they order Ubers, they order food, they tell AI to do their homework for them. And let me tell you something even more sordid. Our children don't look for porn. In our days, when we were younger, we would ask, where do you sin? We had no clue where to sin. A brother would stand up in the church and say, I fell into sin. And we would say, where? Tell us where. Share with us. Because we didn't know where. In our days, in my days, we weren't more holy. We were just holier due to a lack of resources. One person would take a porn magazine to school, and we would all huddle around it saying, whoa, 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 because we weren't sure of what we were even looking at. Children today are not like that. Porn looks for our children. Businesses, companies like Pornhub invest a whole lot of money into psychology and psychiatrics. And they know what times we're living in. They'd like to reach our children from the age of 6 to 12 because that's where children begin to develop desire. And so they can link their desires in their adulthood from what they saw in their foundation. So what's so dangerous about porn? Well, porn gives our children answers to questions they still haven't even asked. And when children have answers to questions that they still haven't even asked, it's perversion. Perverting means to deviate from the natural use. Perverting a mind is giving answers to questions that they still haven't asked. Remember back in our days when they would give us advice, when should you speak to a child about sex? Well, when they ask. When they begin to become interested in the opposite sex. Don't tell them about it at the age of 8. But nowadays, pornography, not sexual education, it reaches them at the age of 7 or 8. Before a child has even kissed someone else on the cheek, statistically speaking, they've already seen 700 sex scenes, hundreds of orgies, and 300 threesomes. It's hard, but that's what we're battling against. That's the smoke, that's the cancer. Now, I don't think we have to draw a line and that cultural heritage and live in a spiritual bubble. It's not to frighten us, but we also can't fully submerge ourselves into the mud of a culture that surrounds us, and that's what determines the habits of our lives and of our children's lives. The majority of producers and directors don't care about the impact that their films have on our spiritual lives. No, they just want to sell. It's enough to see what the academies reward, and that'll show you that they just want to sell and not educate. The authors of the majority of hip-hop artists are direct, and they describe everything they're going to do to you in bed and this and that. They don't worry about whether or not this song is building us up or if it'll bring people closer to God. No, it's our responsibility to discern what comes into our minds, into our homes, into our lives, and what we're going to keep out. There are people that we wouldn't allow to walk down the sidewalk outside of our home. But so many things come in through our devices and indoctrinate our children. So all that we do, no matter where we go, it should reflect our love and commitment to God. If not, we're wasting time here on Sundays. God is with us when we're consuming any content in bed, on our couches, in our living room, or when we're worshiping God here. God is always present. He doesn't move. He doesn't turn off. Do we agree? He's always present. So everything we allow to come into our minds, hearts, and lives has an impact in the way in which we grow or in the way that we don't grow spiritually. It's an impact. Why do we sometimes pray, Lord, prosper this person, Lord, provide healing? But then there's people that are stuck, stagnant, because there's so much junk in their minds that it's impossible for the Holy Spirit, which is pure and holy, symbolized by a dove, to coexist with everything that we take in. So if we don't adjust our diet, then by consequence our souls are in danger of absorbing lethal venom each and every day. It's killing us and our children. The Bible reminds us that we should regularly observe our spiritual life and check if there's toxins. Proverbs 25:26 says, like a muddied spring and a polluted well, so is a righteous man who gives way before the wicked. How muddy is our water at this very moment? How muddy is it? We're either contaminated by all the cultural toxins that are coming into our well, or through Christ, are we a spiritual well of living water that can quench people's thirst? Are we living water, or are we a muddy spring? That's why there are people that can't preach about Christ. They don't gain souls because their water is muddy, and whatever they touch is contaminated, even if they come to church. Let's remember that there is no semi-pure water. There is no semi-contaminated water. Every toxin, every germ, every bacteria, every contaminant pours out contaminants in our supply of spiritual water. It's either pure or contaminated. It's not a little bit of contamination. Our excuse is always, well, I don't make the movies. I don't write these songs. I don't create these applications. That excuse is useless, because even if we're not the ones that directly smoke, we're passive smokers, in the worst case, consumers of a culture of sewage, of septic tank. And it stinks. So today's question is, wouldn't you like to leave that room full of smoke and breathe in fresh and pure spiritual air? Wouldn't you like it? Aren't you saying, I need new spiritual air, fresh air, right? Well, for that, more than just an applause or an amen, we need to have intellectual honesty. Notice I didn't even say spiritual honesty. No, intellectual honesty. Someone that's intellectually honest never discards the evidence that's going against their habits. They don't discard the evidence that opposes their belief system. And it's used often in politics. People say, I beg that you have intellectual honesty. I'm showing you with facts that you're wrong, or that what you believed until now is incorrect. Let me give you a practical example. I don't know if you ever knew someone that thinks they sing well, but they howl like an injured animal. It's not that they're a little bit out of tune, because we all go out of tune from time to time. And there's techniques. No, I'm talking about people that say, and you say, poor guy, they're dying. They're not singing. You ask yourself, how can they be so unaware of their total lack of talent, but they're fully convinced that they sing beautifully? Watch American Idol, or those that go to the castings, or shows like The Voice, and you'll realize that some show up and you ask, why did they even show up? Why, sweetie? Why would you do that? But you know what's even more challenging to me, which blows my mind? Understanding how they're friends. Do they not have one good friend? Or their families? How can they support them in that deceit? Why doesn't anyone say, hey, you are not good at this. Hello? Hey, why doesn't anyone say that to them? You know those mothers that curse the choir director or the casting director for not recognizing the incredible vocal talents in my son? Lock up that woman now. That is why Jeremiah 17:9 describes the problem and says, the heart is deceitful above all things. The more we lie to ourselves, or the longer we remain in denial of the truth, it's going to be more likely that we're going to base our lives on false beliefs. Because at this point in life, everyone began to think, well, I don't watch too many things. Lately, I haven't really been watching things. But to see those blind spots that we don't want to see, we have to use different mirrors at different angles. That's how you see blind spots. In my childhood home, we had one mirror in the bathroom, and then my dad added two on either side. So I would always just comb my bangs, but never the back side of my head. The whole Gebel family had hair sticking up on the back of their head, because since we didn't see the back of our head, we thought no one else would see it. But now, I'd like to supply or provide you with some of those mirrors to remove those toxic conducts that we aren't able to see. Why can't we see certain conduct or toxic habits? Well, David answers this question. The writer of the Psalms in Psalm 36:2, he says, the sinner flatters himself in his own eyes, too much to detect and hate his sin. His own words are deceitful. The words of his mouth are iniquity and deceit. He has ceased to be wise and to do good. David affirms that there are people that have become so willing to deceive themselves that they can't even detect their own sin. In other words, there are people that make their own venom and they supply themselves with it in small doses each and every day without even realizing. And it's likely that we know someone like this, right? Who hasn't gotten to know a gossiper that says, oh, I don't like to snoop in other people's lives. I hate it. But let me just tell you this so that you're praying with me. And the details are so that we can pray specifically. Who doesn't know a rude person that says, I'm not rude, it's just that I'm authentic and confrontational. But they go around offending the whole world. Or who doesn't know that person that thinks he's a gift to women? And we all look at him and we immediately realize that he's an idiot. He's egocentric. He's arrogant. Not even on a deserted island would a woman go up to him. But he believes that he's Brad Pitt, but the Christian version, and he's going around life like this. Don't we know people like this? Or that colleague in the office that thinks she's so efficient, that she's so helpful, but in reality, we all know that she's manipulative and insecure and poisonous. Why can't these people see themselves? Well, let me give you the answer. The answer is this. It's very deep. In this very moment, everyone thought that they know someone that lives in denial, but nobody thought about themselves. No one. Nobody. Nobody said, yeah, that's me, that's me. That stupid guy that's walking around thinking he's a gift to women, that's me. Nope, nobody said that. Nobody thought that. The stupid guy said, oh, yeah, I know someone. No, nobody thinks about themselves. Almost no one believes that they're suffering self-deceit, but everyone thinks they know someone that's suffering it. That's the point. We have an enormous capacity to deceive ourselves. We're not objective, we're subjective. And for that same reason, that's why the majority of us desire a healthy life, but we continue to take in a toxic diet. And some ask, why don't I prosper spiritually? Why don't I grow? Well, because you're eating a toxic diet. You say, no, I'm just watching things to distract myself. I listen to urban music, but because it kind of clears my mind with all the shake it, and they're listening to it. The other day, somebody stood next to me, and they were listening to a song with such lyrics. I'm not going to say it here. Obviously, logically, I'm not going to. And on the back of their car, they had the river bumper sticker. And so immediately I called the police because it was a stolen vehicle. It had to be. And they said, no, that's the owner of the car. Oh, okay. So we need a process, a relentless process of self-examination, a relentless process. We need to examine deeply everything that our mind takes in. All the media we consume, the content on our cell phones, the pages that we navigate, the content that we entertain ourselves with. It's not legalism, it's a diet. It's cleaning, it's health. So the first step to defeat an enemy is to know your enemy. But let's remember that denial is our first line of defense. If we say, no, hold on. This message isn't for me. I'm spiritually mature. I've been a believer for years. There are things that don't affect me anymore. That is denial. That's denial. Because this isn't a message for the spiritual babies that drink milk or colostrum, and not for the mature ones. Those that are the most offensive are those that are most affected. As soon as we detect those spiritual toxins that need to be cleaned out, we have to act quickly and decisively, period. Like when they tell us, you have cancer, what are we going to say? Well, next year when I come back for my checkup, we'll see how the cancer has advanced or if it's gone. No, if they tell us you have cancer, we say, where's the solution? Now, today, I need it. James said it in chapter 1, verse 22. But be doers of the word, and not only hearers, deluding your own selves. Take the word to practice. What does it mean? Well, I'm listening to what God is speaking to me. I believe He's speaking to me. And I'm going to make an intentional decision. Delayed obedience is disobedience, right, parents? Clean your room. All right, I'll do it right now. What is that? Disobedience. You have to do it now. In the army, you can't say, I'll do it later. No, now. Now is now. So if we'd like to purify our hearts and our lives, first we have to recognize the diverse toxins and their entry points in our lives. Identify, where did that Trojan horse come in through? So when it's about anything that we consume, a small amount of venom is always too much. A small amount of venom is too much. The Apostle Paul explained this truth in a letter to his friends in Corinth. It seems like the church was full of Christians, like all churches, Christians with good intentions, but were victims of countless temptations, cultural temptations. And Paul says in 1 Corinthians 5:6, he says, "Don't you know that a little yeast leavens the whole lump? A little yeast leavens the whole lump. Purge out the old yeast, that you may be a new lump, even as you are unleavened." I was reading the story of an adolescent that was invited by his friends to watch a movie that was classified for adults, for mature audiences, but he begged his mother that she allow him to go and watch it all the same. And he was saying, "Mom, there's not too many bad things in it. There's not too many bad things. There's a little bit of violence, a few murders, some bad words. All movies have bad words. I don't even notice them anymore. And a very, very little bit of sex." And then he added something that all children say at one point or another. "Mom, come on, all my friends have seen it already. They all saw it, all of them. And they say that it's so good, they say it's great." And so the mother answers something that all mothers have once said or will say at one point. "If everyone jumps off of a cliff, are you going to jump off a cliff as well?" That's what mothers used to say before and today, right? But the mother in my story, tired of the peer pressure and manipulation, had a better idea. She said to him, "While you watch the film with your friends, I'm going to bake a chocolate cake." And he was so happy, he told his friends, "Hey, we're going to enjoy a chocolate cake that my mother made." So they all devoured it. When his parents, when the friends left, the mother said, "Hey, I put in a secret ingredient. I put our pet dog's poop in it." Yep, a little bit just in between the chocolate. And the young boy almost dies. He began to gag, and the mother said, "No, don't worry, it's just a little bit of poop. All your friends ate it, and they said that the cake was amazing. It's just a little bit." So let's ask this question. Is there a little bit of poop in the content that we normally like to watch? Let's think about what we've watched last night. Was there a little bit of poop? A little bit. Yeah, but all right, well, dig in. It's a lie. That culture attacks us and, well, we have no choice but to eat junk because that's the only thing on the menu. No, that's the old axiom of eat manure because a million flies can't be mistaken. Oh, but the whole world watched it. They even won an Oscar. All right then, eat manure because a million flies can't be mistaken. Who eats manure? Why don't we eat manure if it's a feast for flies? We're always going to find what we're looking for. We either have the soul of a vulture or the soul of a hummingbird. Vultures circle in the sky, always looking and observing, examining. If you see vultures, it's because they smelled and are looking for something dead. That ugly bird, that nocturnal bird, loves to find putrid, rotten, infected, stinky things. A hummingbird, however, possesses the quickest metabolic system, and that's why it developed mechanisms to absorb nectar from flowers as quickly as possible. They suck it and then they leave. And the same is with us. Either we continue on a diet of nectar or on a diet of cadavers. Whatever we eat is what we're going to do. We're going to find and eat whatever we were looking for. Culture doesn't attack us. It's very easy to become a cultural chameleon and mix in and be a part of the culture that surrounds us. And as our discernment camouflages in that cultural norm and spiritual priorities begin to disappear, there's content that takes away our desire to seek God. Jesus said in Matthew 7:13, "Enter by the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the way is easy that leads to destruction, and those who enter by it are many." For the gate is narrow and the way is hard that leads to life, and those who find it are few. And that speaks to the fact that we have to look for it intentionally. So, nowadays, the gate is wide, wider than ever. Now you don't have to go to Blockbuster. Now you don't need to have a cable subscription with paid channels. Now you don't have to go and look for a magazine. No, it all comes straight into our pocket, to our cell phone. So now the gate is wide, and it's found us the way porn has found our children. Multitudes always go to the most spaced out path. Only a few go to the correct one because it has to be intentional. So as Christians, we are called to live a holy life. The Greek word, I'm not talking about salvation here. God loves us, He forgives us, grace doesn't change. What I'm saying is that the Greek word translated as holy, as being holy, the way our Father is holy, the way my Father is holy, the Greek word is agios, which means set apart, different, distinct. So if we're not different in anything and we're just ample, it's either one of two. Either we don't know Christ, or we're not living the commitment that we said we would when we met Him. Being ample is not being open-minded. It's not, well, I'm not noticing the details anymore. No, you're free. Holiness is by grace. I know it. However, the least we can give to the Lord, because it's not a trade, it's not a deal, it's at least an attempt, even if it's a foolish attempt, to try and seek out that narrow door. Remember, not being able to, but wanting to is legalism. I want to sin, but I can't because if the pastor finds out, if he discovers me, that's legalism. Just sin because you've already sinned. Being able to, but not wanting to, is integrity and commitment. Of course I can, but I don't want to. I'm an adult and I can watch whatever I want, but I don't want to. It'll harm me more than it'll build me up. I don't have to join the million flies that during Halloween watch all the horror movies out there. We can say, well, I'm an adult. I know that they're just special effects. When the film ends, am I left with that sensation of wanting to seek God? Am I left with a sensation of peace when I go to bed? And if it steals my peace, there's no need to be an adult or a child. You just need the most common of senses, common sense. Because if we're trying to decide whether it's sin or not sin, that's a whole different conversation. Can we drive above the speed limit while we're going down the road? Crash, die, and go to heaven despite the fact that we were speeding? I think that we can. I don't think God will say, go to hell because you were speeding above the limit. Should we speed above the limit? That's the question. Can we eat a bunch of junk food and never exercise and be lazy and drink beer all day and even then love Jesus? I wouldn't dare to say that lazy people or those that eat junk food don't love Jesus. I cannot dare to say that. The answer, or the question is, even though we can, should we? No, because it's not wise. Can I put myself into a huge debt and buy a bunch of things that I still can't afford, but even then be a follower of Jesus? Yes, of course. How many people like that are out there? But should I do it? No. So just because we can do something, does it mean that we should? Because the gate is wide, does it mean that we should walk through it? Paul says in 1 Corinthians 6:12, all things are lawful for me, but not all things are helpful. All things are lawful for me, but I will not be dominated by anything. There's nothing deeper than that. I'm not adopting a legalist posture or a retrograde or stale posture. I'm hired to be a reporter, but I've heard Christian leaders that say, Christians shouldn't watch rated R movies. Because even our child films are infested with junk. Now to say, rated R films can't be seen. That's a fallacy. The Passion of Christ by Mel Gibson was classified R due to its brutal violence, and the majority of us agree that the film has a great spiritual value. We can't say, here's what we'll do. Let's throw away all iPads, all devices, all phones into the river, like a beloved Puerto Rican preacher once taught. Because once again, it would be attacking the symptom and not the root. So it's crucial to understand the fact that we're called to discernment, not to indoctrination. I will not pretend, and I'm sorry if it sounds like indoctrination. This is discernment. Only the Holy Spirit will tell each and every person where to draw the line. Each person knows what harms them. In terms of diet, in the body, some can eat grains and it won't harm them. Some of us eat a bit of gluten and we'll spend the day in the bathroom. Each person knows where to draw the line. I can't say gluten is satanic because it doesn't harm some people. I can't say this is the amount of spice that you can put into food because it harms me. Some get an ulcer. Others say, oh, how delicious. Give me more spice. Everyone knows where to draw the line. What we cannot trust is our conscience. Because 1 Timothy 4:2 says that it can be calloused. Our conscience is not a precise guide. Oh, well, the other day I watched some things that had a whole bunch of everything, and my conscience didn't tell me anything. No, the conscience is not a guide. So, when we're in a gray zone, what do? How do we decide what's good and what's bad? Well, we miss out on a very good movie or film because it's a world phenomenon, just because that has a few bad words, a bit of violence, some nudity, some sex, some inclusion of genders. I'm going to miss out on just because of that. Everyone's talking about it at school. Everyone's talking about it at work. Even at the factory, they're all asking me if I've seen it. I would suggest to err on the safe side. If I offered you a bottle of water and said, hey, I want you to drink it because it's 99% pure water, your question would be, well, what about the 1%? That's urine. Would you drink it? But it's 1% of urine, just a little bit of poop, the mom said. Let's err on the safe side. There are two brief verses in the Bible that offer a guide. 1 Thessalonians 5:21. But test everything. Hold fast what is good. Abstain from every form of evil. Every form of evil. It doesn't say, oh, a little bit of poop is good for your diet. No. Every form of evil. So our life has to be, well, let's see if today I find something good. If it's something that doesn't honor God, I'll remove it. If it's something useful and entertaining, then we'll enjoy it. If there's a little bit of poop and it's harmful and it's toxic for the soul, well, let me avoid it. It's not legalism. Everyone does what they want. Those that congregate here know that there's no follow-ups. Nobody calls and asks, hey, what's up with you? I haven't seen you with your wife. What about your mother-in-law? Did you kill her? No. But I'm a person that believes that when something is sinful, run, Forrest, run. Let's not expose ourselves to anything that distracts us from God. That's the guide. And before I finish, I think that we should all ask ourselves very sincere questions in this process of relentless self-examination. Relentless is deep, thorough, without beating around the bush. Before we take something into our mind, let's ask ourselves, number one, what Paul said. Does this help me? Is this helpful? Not if it's good or bad. Is it helpful? Number two, does it build me up? Does it add another brick to the wall? Number three, everything the apostle said, does it slow me down in my race? Because Paul said, let us lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance. Runners don't run with boots. It's not that it's a sin to do so, but it's just that they can't run the same. First we spoke about sin, now we're talking about burdens. Is this slowing me down? There's a level where our problem isn't sin, but the unnecessary burdens that will get in the way of our priorities. Number four, does this dominate me? If I spend 1 or 2 days without this, do I begin to shake and tremble? Fifth, is this taking away my peace? I am having dreams, I'm not resting well. There's no need to be underage for people to tell us this. How many adults sometimes don't know how to choose our diet, the diet that our mind takes in? 6, is this an example to others? Are my children proud of this? Of what I consume? Of what I feed myself? 7, does this glorify God, the same God that I go to worship on Sundays? Why am I saying this? Well, every time our multimedia team, the guys running the cameras, every time they calibrate the colors and calibrate the cameras, they always put a white sheet of paper in front of the main camera. This is known as white balance. They put someone up here with the white sheet of paper, and the camera has to see the white, because if it doesn't interpret this white correctly, it won't interpret other colors. It's not going to interpret colors until it identifies what true white is. If there is no white balance, every Sunday on the cameras, a blue shirt might look gray, a red jacket might look orange. When the camera sees true white, it knows how to discern all the other colors. When we see pure white, or the truth, even if it hurts, just then can we see with clarity what portion of what we consume is harmful and displeases God. It is said that the only way to recognize false bills is by being exposed to real bills for a long, long time, not the opposite. People from the treasury are educated by touching many, many real bills to quickly identify the false bills. They don't tell them, oh, here's all the false bills, touch them so you recognize them. No, they touch the real ones, and when there's false ones, they immediately recognize them. But if it's been months, years since we've seen the real thing, how can we recognize the false? Paul reminds us that the antidote, the supernatural antidote for venom that tries to come into our mind, he says that in Romans 12:2, do not be conformed to this world. Don't camouflage, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. And the Greek word transformed as renovation is anakainosis, which means to restore, to renovate. So what should we do? Here's my suggestion. The same that communication monopolies do, the same that minorities are doing on platforms. Renormalize the good. Renormalize values. That's why I'm in the media world. To renormalize values. I can be funny without curse words. I can entertain. They can pay me to share news without insulting, without denigrating. I'm renormalizing values instead of attacking those that think differently. It's our job to show a different alternative. Not just oppose what's wrong. Oh, the world is so wrong. No, but propose what is right. What is good. We're not a minority. And so our tactic shouldn't be based on the demonization, but on love. Loving everyone. Highlighting the positive instead of just attacking the negative. It's fine. Culture is harmful and aseptic. But what do we propose? And many of us have to grotesquely characterize those that are against us. Call abortionists diabolical or see minorities as pests. That doesn't make us greater believers. We just have to show a different path in love. I'm not pretending to tell you what you should do, what you shouldn't do. You're not going to leave here with a list of what you can watch and what you can't watch, because this isn't a congregation with a messianic leader that's going to give you a list of what you can watch, what you can see, what you can consume. But I am going to pray, and we're going to pray together so that our discernment can grow, so that our mind is never filled with calluses, and fundamentally, so that we can be a spring of pure water in the midst of a sewage culture. Do we agree? We're going to celebrate the Lord of Lords. Come on, come on. Once you get on your feet, give a grand applause to the Lord of Lords and King of Kings. Give a grand applause. The Lord has spoken today. Blessed are you. Hallelujah. Everyone, everyone, everyone. My beloved, keep this word in your heart. Guard it in your heart. Because most likely they're going to cancel this message. Guard it in your heart. Keep it in your heart. But without attacking, you have to say what you believe. I give thanks for the inclusion of genders and for the defense of the minority, because I can also go out and defend what I believe without being prejudiced. In my country, for many years, people would say, oh, a pastor, oh, they steal tithes. And they would tell me that on TV shows. Years ago, I was interviewed by a reporter, and he asks me, oh, you're a pastor? Oh, you steal. Now they can't say that to me because I get offended. I say, no. I respect minorities. And if us Christians are minorities for some, then you have to respect me. I won't allow myself to be stigmatized. Oh, no. I'm sorry. Whoa. I'm sorry. So it's as if the law is equal for all. I don't want to be discriminated for being good. I don't want to be discriminated against for having values. I don't want to feel discriminated for being transparent. We don't have to ask for forgiveness for being heterosexual. We shouldn't be on our tippy toes just because we do things the right way. We have to show that they cannot stigmatize us, that they cannot tell us, oh, there's the religious person. No, we have to defend our values and make this the normalcy. That values are a part of what we live in, of what we defend. Are you with me? It's a battle. It's a war of good versus evil. The evil will always remain. I don't want anyone to leave here dreaming that the world will one day be a planet full of flowers and we're going to accomplish it. No, because I've read how the story ends in Revelations, and yes, it ends with Christ at the wheel, winning, but the world will get worse. Culture won't improve. Today we didn't speak about how to change culture. No, we spoke about how not to get involved with that sewage culture. This will get worse. The problem is not the culture, not the good, the evil. The problem is when, as Christians, we call the good evil and the evil we call good, because that is called relativism. And when everything's relative and, everything has a bit of bad, or, who doesn't do something? There's going to come a moment where we lose our discernment of good and evil. And for you to lose that discernment, a few meters before you lost your fear of God. And if you lost that fear of God, it doesn't make sense for us to come here on Sundays or for you to watch me online. No, none of you. Watch a movie. Go on a Netflix marathon. What are you doing wasting your time here if you've already lost your fear of God? It doesn't make sense. I lost my fear of God. I call the good evil and the evil good, but at least I congregate. God will never save or bless someone just by average. It's to say, God, I didn't get into this. Be religious. Much less to baptize people or bury the dead. No, I'm in this business so that when I leave here, there's an imprint that people will recognize me by. And that's going to be tough. It's going to cost me cancellations, people that will oppose me, people that will call me a retrograde, people that will insult us, people that will say that we're homophobic. But God knows what our heart is. It doesn't oppose anyone. It opposes normalization of evil. When we want to be normal, when we want to make normal what is a minority, when we want to make everything relative, when suddenly everything is so relative that we begin to live in a gray zone, a gray area, and we become ample, and we forget what our convictions are. Our convictions have to remain. Is it going to be tough? Terribly difficult. But our convictions have to be linked to the Spirit. Are we in this battle together? Yes. Should we recover and refresh our convictions? Yes. Let's pray. Father, everyone praying with me, please. Father, I've transmitted with fear and with trembling what I believe you told me to say. You've lent me the ears of so many people, and today with a whole lot of responsibility by the word which you've given me and inspired me, I've only been able to reach these people's intellect. But I know that your Holy Spirit has reached the places that I cannot reach, which is the heart and the soul. And that's where I want you to be working, and I know you're doing it. Holy Spirit, we've made a great team again. You've reached the places that I cannot reach. And the conviction of sin doesn't bring guilt, but brings repentance. Forgive us, Lord. Clean out the deposit of our minds. Clean, Lord, the trash content that is profane, toxic. Renew the Spirit in our mind and our minds, Lord. Help us to make a difference. It'll be so difficult. I know it. I know. No one said that this would be an easy mission. It's almost a mission impossible unless the Holy Spirit is in the equation, unless your Spirit helps us. Give us strength to discern, to clean out, to purge ourselves.
Venga una purga espiritual.
May a spiritual purge come to our mind, to our soul, to our heart.
Purga
Purge
que hemos consumido.
what we've consumed.
Pasa por el tamiz.
Filter out through the sieve
Quiere nuestra mente de manera
everything that our mind takes in.
que los restos que no deben entrar queden fuera. Purifica.
Whatever needs to stay out, keep it out, Lord. Purify us. We're going to pray like King David, and we're going to say, Lord, purify my heart with hyssop and set me free. Free me of all the sin that is hidden to me.
Que están en casa, los que están aquí,
Those that are at home, those that are here,
y quieren recibir a Cristo.
and those that want to receive Christ in their hearts and be clean and pure, just say, Lord, come into my life. Forgive my sins.
Reconciliando.
Those that are reconciling with God, do the same.
Gracias, Dios.
Thank you, God.
Aquí vamos, antes de irnos a adorar un momento.
Here, before we go, we're going to worship for a moment.
Voy a despedirlos.
At home, I'm going to say goodbye
Que no quiero agregar nada, nada, nada.
because I don't want to add anything to what is
Neta, pura.
the net, pure word.
Y sí,
And yeah,
si algo nos choquea y nos mueve.
if
y
something
nos
shocks us and moves the ground beneath us, what a blessed word it is.
disciplina y corrige a
Because
todo aquel que
those that God loves, He disciplines and He corrects His children. And if He loves us so much, He's going to say, son, daughter, it's this way. This is the path.
regresa a la senda antigua.
Come
La
back.
senda angosta.
Come back
La senda antigua no es la vieja.
to the narrow path. The old way is not
La senda antigua es
the old-fashioned way, the old group.
esfuerzo que hacemos
It's
todos
that effort that we all give
separados del resto por ser
to be
diferentes.
set apart from the rest. Being different. Being different isn't about avoiding the worldly things or surrounding yourselves with just Christian people.
Yo platico con
No, during the week, I speak with more unbelievers than I do with Christians. My partners, my associates, many of them are unbelievers. I can do business with them, I can work with them.
cada mañana.
But every morning, my responsibility is, Lord, help me to make a difference.
No significa que Dios me
That doesn't mean that God sends me out to condemn or point fingers or judge, because I live by grace.
pero marca una diferencia.
But I make a difference in such a way that they begin to ask me, hey, you're doing things the right way. Wow.
Tienes cosas escondidas.
Wow, you're not hiding anything. Oh, wow. I like that. And it's not that I'm going through the world proud, saying, look at me, I'm an example. No, on the contrary. But it's so beautiful when you can show
Talento no va de la mano
that talent
óptico de lo sucio.
isn't inherent with the evil. It's so marvelous when a business can get ahead without scams or theft. It's so marvelous when people ask, how did you accomplish that without having to go through all the things that others had to go through and getting their hands dirty? It's so great to get to your goal saying, I got here not because I scammed or lied or deceived or I went to bed with anyone or because I sold myself. No, but because God and
Bendito eres.
me are